What's up, LinkedIn community? This is Adam Conrad, founder and CXO of Great Recruiters. We are experience management, brand promotion, review generation, referral generation platform for the recruitment industry. This is GR Live, and I am fired up to be joined here with Noel Wolf. He is the founder and managing partner of Collinwood staffing firm. And Noel, appreciate you jumping on with me today.
Happy to be here, Adam. Appreciate you having me too.
Hey, do me a favor for those folks who don't know who you are. Can you talk a little bit about your organization, your background? And I always love to hear nobody really grows up thinking I want to be a recruiter. So tell us, start there. Tell us how you got into this industry.
Yeah, I tell people this story all the time because you're right. There's no maybe I'll give myself a shameless plug about my podcast later, but that's one of the first episodes we had was no one tells you that this is a profession. There is no college degree for it. There's limited for professional training. So the way I got into it was that I was working a route sales position for a company called Aramark, similar to Cintas. Cintas was the upstart back then. But people now know Cintas, don't know Aramark. But anyway, I was working there, working hard. I was a union route sales rep, and my younger brother came to me and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity to be a recruiter. Can you help me go buy, some clothes? I have to wear a suit every day." I said, "Sure." So we went, bought some suits, bought some, nice shoes, and so he starts working as a recruiter for a boiler room environment shop back in Cleveland. And about 6 months in, he's paid me back my money, and he's driving a new car, and and I'm working hard at this, job that's out in the elements, it's a delivery position. And I said, "What is it again you're doing?" And he said, I'm recruiting. I find people from company A, I convince them and talk to them about an opportunity at company B. And I'm like, "And people pay you for this?" And he said, "Yeah, they pay pretty well. And I get a commission from that." I didn't quite understand the model. We're going back 30 years ago. I've been doing this a while. And I said, "Well, don't they just put an ad in the newspaper and they apply to it?" And he said, "No, not for these specialized jobs." He was doing a lot of engineering at the time.
Yeah.
He said, "Not for these specialized jobs." So I said, "Okay, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you're able to do this, I think I could do this too." So I dipped my toe in the water at that same search firm, did that for a while. That environment wasn't great for me, but it did lead me into the profession. And then I worked for some consulting firms along the line until, got the itch to start my own firm back in 2014.
That's awesome. And tell us a little bit about Collinwood.
Yeah, Collinwood. We're a veteran-owned information technology staffing firm. Our previous company, my business partner Jim and I, he owned our previous company, and I was our head of recruitment. We were a boutique SAP shop. After doing implementation work and having to ride the ups and downs of project work and people hitting the bench, we said, we want to do staffing more than bench-based, consulting. So we do have a niche in, SAP and some other competency areas. But we started back in 2014. A majority of what we do is hourly contract staffing, and a smaller portion up until this year has been perm hiring. But this year, perm hiring is far outpacing our contract work in 2023.
Sure. So I've got 20, I see 25. I think I'm coming up on 25 years in the industry. But I started shortly after we were still using fax machines to send resumes, right? Yeah. You'd have to have a 12 font on the top, and you'd have to slide it through and wait for the confirmation. You'd have a line for your resume submittals. But I think you might have started where you had a folder system. Maybe 100%. You had a folder system. Do you remember your color coding for your candidates?
Yeah, so I don't remember the color coding, but I can tell you. So we would show up and, I have a team of recruiters who are all relatively new to the industry, 2-3 years. And some of them are actually younger as well. And I tell the story of, I'd go into our initial search firm and there'd be 25 folks sitting at desks. There's no computers. You just have a phone on your desk. And every morning our admin would drop off a list of clients that you needed to call in the morning and candidates you needed to call in the afternoon. And there were banks, actual file cabinets, we're not talking about SharePoint, actual file cabinets filled with candidate resumes and candidate intake notes from previous. And if you wanted to find some information on someone, you had to go to an actual file cabinet, open it, dig through the files, find the stack, give them a call and, dial for dollars.
It was the original resume database.
Yes, for sure.
On-prem. Now everything's in the cloud and it's
right.
easy. So, I position that because your career has seen this industry change wildly over the last 30 years. And I'd love to hear your perspective on where you think the industry is kind of at and what do you think those changes are. But I'm believing you also think that there's probably some fundamental things that have always remained the same. So tell me about what hasn't changed in the 30 years of your experience in the staffing industry.
That's a great question, because for folks that haven't been doing it a long time, you hear a lot about the death of the recruiter or the recruiting industry, right? When Monster came along, job boards were going to put us out of business. And now the latest, warning bell is AI is going to put us out of business. But the reality is that it remains and will remain. I'm confident in saying this. It's a people business. A robot is not going to be able to have a interpersonal conversation with, Adam Conrad about an opportunity at a company. They're just not. They may have some statistical information, they may have the black and white facts, but they're not going to be nuanced enough to have an intelligent conversation. So just in the course of my career, I've heard so many times that this profession was going to end, and it continues to flourish for me personally, for many of my gray-haired colleagues and friends who've been doing this 20, 30, 10 years, whatever the case is. And I reinforce it with my current staff that's relatively new to the industry, that they're going to be fine. If anything, these new tools they are tools. I've been excited about a lot of the tools that have come along from when, we used to pull filing cabinet resumes, right? Whether it's, an applicant tracking system, which is just table stakes, right, these days. But back then it was like, wow, this is revolutionary. We're going to put it all in a system, to things like, your product. And I know we'll get to that. Things like Sense. I'll give them a short plug, but I'm not a customer anymore. But I think the concept when I heard about it was, wow, I need this in my life. The AI helping us with, kind of being a co-pilot to helping write better job descriptions or write better outreach messages to candidates. I think these are all just tools. But back to your original part of your question, is it's a people business. It always has been. It always will be. We're not going to be replaced.
Yeah, I think our industry is meeting people where they want to be. I don't think that people will be replaced, but I think from a consumer standpoint, I look at much like I can just go on Amazon and order something and go. That's awesome. I can book a flight on Delta, and I'm really happy to do that. But if I'm going to go to Europe for a 2-week excursion, I am not booking that online. Like, that is a huge investment. It's like, I want to talk to somebody. And I think that's where the recruitment industry is never going to change. It's much like the realtors. The value used to be the MLS listings. It's not anymore, right? The value is all the extra data that they have, and had a success. David George, he just went through buying a house for sale by owner. And he's like, it was a nightmare. He's like, I know why the realtor exists. And I think that's it, because recruiters provide peace of mind. And for those people that want to get a quick job and it's easy, they can probably sign up and just grab something. But like for where you're at in the professional realm, career-oriented individuals as well, I agree. The recruiter is not going to go away. And in fact, I think they're going to get elevated more, and there's going to be more social pressures kind of walking into what we're talking about today to perform at a high level. Noel and I met back in 2021 at TechServe Alliance, Amelia Island, and I had done a presentation on recruiter brand. So let's start there. Like, what was it? Because I think shortly after that, you were like, yes, I'm all in with Great Recruiters. So I'd love to hear, what did you see that we were providing that you saw your organization need, and what problems did that solve?
Well, first of all, the concept of recruiter brand has been, and I know I certainly didn't invent that sentence, recruiter brand, or that phrase, but I've been championing that for a long time. I remember going into an organization back in 2002, I think it was, when I took over an existing recruiting team. And as I was meeting them, I said, one of the things I want you to understand is that you are the brand. The company we work for today, and I had, I think, 10 recruiters on my team, 8 recruiters on my team. I said, 10 years from now, the candidate you interact with today probably won't remember the company that you're working for, but they will remember you. They will remember Susie or John or Adam or Noel. They will remember you. So you are your brand. And this is, again, probably well in advance of, I think LinkedIn was just starting to take off. I'm getting my timelines right, but it was well before, there are now branding companies, and you can use, Haley and Party. You can do some individual things, but I've been a champion of recruiter brand for a long time. And I think, when you and I met and, learned a little bit more about Great Recruiters, I thought this is a great way to validate the recruiter brand. A lot of folks, me included, use reviews, whether it's Yelp, whether it's, if you're a business person, use G2 or Trustpilot. I was just telling you earlier, Adam, I won't watch it. There's so much content now, TV, movies, streaming. There's so many. I'm probably 7 years behind on all my shows, but I've had to draw a line in the sand to say, look, anything below a 7.0 on IMDb, I can't watch it. Like, it's just not worth my time. I want to watch quality shows. And I think that bleeds over into the value I saw in your offering your product initially, and you've expanded it along the way, and we've been a happy customer or partner, is that it does lend that validation to the outside world that my recruiters are, trustworthy or know what they're doing. And for me, and I know we'll probably get into this, for me as an owner, as a manager, it helps me improve what they're, where we need to improve. It identifies the gaps. How can I help my team get better at this profession? Because as you and I know, if you type in, recruiters are into Google, just go do it right now. Recruiters are, you'll see all sorts of disparaging things. Right. And I don't want that for my team. I don't want that for our profession. I certainly don't want that for my company. So, we're a big fan.
No, I really appreciate that. And I think, when you think about reviews, the reason reviews are so powerful is because we trust what our peers say. And in the world of the internet with access of information, there are so many options that you have. You need a way to cut through and filter through everything else. And we do it through authentic reviews. And I think that's the piece of kind of why people trust it. But, we're a services-based industry. And I think you hit the nail on the head, which is why I started Great Recruiters, not just for the recruiters, but for the candidates, is the perception and reputation was not great. And so even if you're a great recruiter and you don't have a way to have that social proof to stand behind it, people are just categorizing you as a recruiter when you Google recruiters are. And I know, and there's a lot different people. So I love that it's working that way for you. And can you talk a little bit more as a business owner, like what has it done for you? And I'll say, what is getting real-time feedback? There's a lot of ways to get feedback. Yeah, you don't have to use Great Recruiters to do it. We do a lot more with the feedback, which I think provides you that return on your investment, your return on your reviews. But from a real-time feedback perspective, like, what does that do for you as a business owner?
So for me, it's super important. We have a small, nimble team, 5 recruiters, including our recruiting associate. And we actually extend our reviews out to our sales folks as well as recruiters, not as salespeople. So we're not soliciting our clients just yet. But, our salespeople sometimes get involved in our recruiting process. So I want to make sure, they're also championing the message and doing a good job when they're having interactions with our candidate base. But for me, there's different ways that staffing firms, monitor or train or keep track of. Monitor sounds, bad, but there are firms that have, call systems that record calls for training purposes and things of that nature. And I don't have the time to listen to all of my recruiters' calls, and I can certainly hear them when they're here in the office, and I can help craft their message and say, oh, you're using this kind of terminology, it'd be better to say this, or you're asking this kind of question, it'd be better to say this. So there's some things I could do there. But for me, it's more results oriented, and that's where where the Great Recruiters platform comes into play, which is it gives me the end result. I got a candidate at different periods in the candidate life cycle. I mean, your product obviously, but we can solicit input at different times. So we have a cadence here within Collinwood where our recruiting and marketing associate Giselle every Tuesday is sending out a request for feedback or a request for a Great Recruiters review every Tuesday for the previous week's activity. So some folks may have just had a conversation with a recruiter. That's one cadence. Another person or people may have had a client interview. So that's a different cadence. Other people got an offer. That's a different cadence. So there's these different things. We do it every week to make sure we stay on top of it. And then I'm getting that feedback real time. I get the emails the minute a person fills out a review, and I can see, a great review and, go talk to the recruiters. Hey, nice job. I saw the comments the candidate put in there. You're doing a great job. And conversely, we've had a couple, negative responses come up, and I really want to dig into what happened. Was it substantiated? Was it something we did wrong? Was it an interaction with the client? As you probably know from not only your business, but even like Yelp, a restaurant will get a bad review because the parking lot attendant across the street, charge them $5 extra. How that has anything to do with the restaurant, I don't know, but the restaurant somehow gets a bad review. We've had a couple of reviews where, they're really reviewing the client. The client manager only spent 15 minutes with me, so Collinwood gets a 2-point star, and so does the recruiter. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. But anyway, but true to kudos to your organization is you don't cleanse and here's my pitch for you guys. You don't cleanse the data, right? You feel, and I had this conversation with David that it's it would be a misuse of the platform to try to make everything nice and rosy and rainbows and butterflies. You want real data in there. So, I certainly, for me, I reach out to those candidates, good and bad, usually the bad ones, because I want to figure out what the problem was and how we can make it right. But I certainly reply to every bad review.
Right.
I want to dig in and understand, and I want them to go away having a good perception of us. They can't change their review, but they can change, how they might tell a friend about their interaction with us.
Right. And so, I mean, that's great. I mean, how do you handle, we're dealing with people, and even on your best day, you can create a bad experience depending on what kind of day the other person's having.
Yep.
And what we have found is when you're asking, people who don't have a good experience, great experience, or a really bad one, they don't really respond. It's like it was in the middle. So we look at response rate as like a hidden indicator of that quality of conversation. Really good, really bad. But when it's really bad, how do you, what is your approach? You said you email them. Like but what is the result of that? What have you found in your experience of reaching out to somebody who said they had a poor experience, and then you jump on the line and reach out to them? What has been the outcome of that kind of way of handling the negative reviews?
I'd say the end result is I feel better. But what I do is I approach the candidate with a message of, sorry you had a poor interaction. I'd like to understand, what went wrong, because that's not the way we operate. In the interest of improving our process or improving how that recruiter conducts their, business, can you let me know what was going on? What were the reactions? And about 50% of the time, I'll get a response. Sometimes they just, they wanted to throw up the flare that they had a bad experience and they move on, and that's fine. But the ones that are more beneficial is when a candidate responds and said, here's what went on. And then I'll go talk to the recruiter. This is usually over email initially. I'll go talk to the recruiter. I'll say, hey, the candidate's saying this. Is this accurate? Is this true? We could have done a better job. And, I'd say there is, for us anyway, there's a consistent theme. And I think a lot of recruiters have this this difficulty is responding to everybody, right? It's very difficult to respond to every candidate. But my mantra to our team is, if a person gets into our process, you need to take them out of our process as well on an individual level. You can't ghost a candidate.
Right.
And so every once in a while we'll get, something falls through the cracks and a recruiter didn't follow up with a candidate, and that's hence the bad review. But again, that's a data point for me to go talk to the recruiter and say, this is an area we need to improve. The recruiters aren't always fans of great recruiters sometimes with, seeing a poor review, but I'm like, you got to take the good with the bad. And I'm not firing anyone over the Great Recruiters platform. It's just it's a touch point to let me know what's going on.
Right. And I think the big thing is, from a business standpoint, we can talk from a business down to an individual. I think the power of being proactive, what would be the result if you didn't ask for feedback? If somebody had a really bad experience, they're going to find a way to share it. And that might end up on your Google page. That might end up on Glassdoor. It might end up somewhere that you don't even know who the person is. And so you can't even resolve it. And I think that's what I hear you saying is being proactive, asking for the feedback. It's to ensure the quality of your services, because your website says it's what you provide, and monitoring it, in this kind of way gives them the freedom to answer. But I would be surprised if once you reached out, I'd rather have that negative review come back into me where we can resolve it and take action than just anonymously somewhere else out there on the web.
Well, not only that, you're absolutely right, Adam, that they're going to go post it somewhere and someone's going to get, a bad impression of us. But the other side is, if something is going on with my recruiters, if they're doing something wrong, or, we're not following up with candidates, for example, if I don't have any way to track or monitor or know that, here we are, I don't know, 2 years later, and somehow find out, like, recruiter XYZ was, never calls anyone ever again. That's poor. It certainly, the outside perception is bad, but we're continuing to foster it internally. So this helps.
So how does Collinwood leverage the reviews? I hear operationally, right? There's two halves to, and what I say is getting feedback's the easy part.
Yep.
There's a lot of ways you can get feedback, and there's a lot of tools out there. What do you do when you get those reviews, and how are you leveraging it beyond just the monitoring, quality assurance, training and development of your recruitment team? How else are you leveraging the review information that you guys are gathering?
We use it as a marketing, push, like that branding piece we talked about earlier, not only on an individual recruiter level, but for Collinwood. So we have, the backside inner workings of Great Recruiters. Again, I'm telling you about your own product, has a way to push out some reviews automatically, but we like to highlight as well. So we'll pull, if you go out to Collinwood's page on LinkedIn, look at some posts, you'll see there's a picture of the recruiter, the comments that were made by the particular candidate, the star rating. We're using that to build that recruiter's brand, that, Sean or Frank or Carrie are great recruiters to work with, no pun intended. That, and also that Collinwood is, a company you want to work with. So we push it both out to the Collinwood page, but also, make sure we brand and, tag that particular recruiter when they're getting those positive reviews in, and also when they get Great Recruiter certified, after having enough recruitment or enough positive reviews under their belt to be certified.
This is a question. I don't know where the answer is going to go here, but okay, in the spirit of transparency, like, this is important for me to know, because I think that, one of the biggest questions I get is, what's the ROI? How do you measure ROI of a platform like this? Obviously, recruitment, everything's very easy. You get a referral from Great Recruiters through one of the reviews, you make that placement. You can directly tie, I got a referral. What I see, though, is like the influence, and what I'm hearing a lot from customers is the influence of sharing that review, the influence that it has when somebody searches for you and sees that it's positive reviews, it's the transparency that you're providing. That all has an influence on callbacks and who's going to engage with you. And if they're getting calls from a bunch of recruiters, who do they decide to call back? But how do you look at yourself and say, this is an expense that is not an expense. It's a valuable ROI tool for our organization.
So we've actually periodically, solicited from our candidate base, what they think about your platform. What did this have any influence on, your reacting to our outreach or continuing our process? And it's all been very positive, that it was helpful to separate us from, like you said, every other staffing firm that's reaching out to them. If the reality is, I wouldn't say it's a secret, but staffing firms are similar to other staffing firms. It's very difficult to both on the client side and the candidate side to differentiate yourself. And one of the ways I feel that we can differentiate ourselves on the candidate side is them trusting that we are credible and ethical and we treat people well, that, like you said, the things I put on our website are in fact true. And I would say to a person, based on our reviews and our interactions, people who come work for us on the consulting side and get placed on the perm side, our values bear out through the Great Recruiters platform. So if there's 10 recruiters calling them, look, Collinwood's a small company. We nobody knows who we are. You and I know who we are, but no one else knows. And so how do I differentiate myself from the big guys and even my peers across the country or here in Chicago? I think when I put my business plan together years ago, there were 17,000 staffing firms. I mean, how do I stand out amongst 17,000 staffing firms? One way is to say, I can validate for you, Mr. Candidate, look at these reviews, look at our company page, look at our LinkedIn profile, that we're a good company to work with. And I think as a person, again, if I'm going to a Yelp review and there's one restaurant has 3,000 4-star reviews and the next restaurant looks cool, but it doesn't have any reviews just yet, or limited reviews, I'm going to go to the one that appears to be the one I want to go to. So I feel the same way. So if we're competing, so to speak, or trying to get the attention of a candidate with 9 other companies, and we have this Great Recruiters beacon letting them know that we're a good company to work with, I would hope that they'd return my recruiters' calls before they return the calls for the other 8, 9 staffing firms.
And that's what I'm hearing you say, is that when you talk to candidates, they're saying, yes, that was an influence that made me want to call you guys back and not the competition.
That's correct. Yes. Yep.
And I didn't know that you were talking to candidates. I love that. You're the first that I've heard from our clients that have said, going out and saying, how is this influence? And that just validates what I believe and what you believe from the power of reviews. Now, I'm willing to take a chance on the new fancy restaurant, Noel. You know why? Because it's only going to cost me a little bit. It's only going to be one meal. And unless I get food poisoning, I can either find a great place to go or I'll never go there again. But when it comes to my career, I'm not taking a chance on something that's unproven.
Oh,
right?
for sure. Yep.
So it's like it's the same and it's different, but I think it even quadruples down the importance of having those reviews. And you said it, you've got 17,000 staffing firms, 17,000 recruiters in that market, bombarding a highly sought after IT kind of candidate pool. And for the candidates, you're doing them a favor. You're doing them a favor by saying, look, there's a lot of choices, but you're going to get taken care of. And whether or not you can promise them that job, because we can't promise everybody, what you can promise them is that you're going to create a great experience. You want to know how it was, and you're going to do your best. And if I'm out there looking and I have a choice of knowing that there's a firm like yours out there that has proven that they provide great experience and quality of service versus somebody who isn't, I just think it's natural that they're gonna lean your way. So it's great to hear that you've validated that to be true. So
well, truthfully, Adam, it's only because I couldn't really put a finger on the ROI, like you said. I can't, like when I go to evaluate our resume sources, whether it's LinkedIn or Dice or so on and so on, I can do that's where the source of the hire was. We paid X for that database. My cost per hire, so to speak, is X. I couldn't do that with your tool. So the better avenue for me was to talk to people and say, hey, what did you think about what you saw there? And a lot of them, the ones I talked to, responded with, yeah, it was for me, it was a good touch point to know that you were a good company to work with, that this particular recruiter was, would treat me professionally and follow up with my phone calls. It helped the candidate get there.
Somebody else had coined this as ROA. When you look at ROI, it's very easy in our industry to say, well, how many placements did it make? And I look at, not everything that is measured is meaningful, and not everything meaningful can be measured through the platforms. What I love what you did is to say, what was the influence? And that is the ROA, which is return on awareness.
Yep.
Right. What is the return on somebody being aware that you're a company that stands behind their values, that you're a company that puts tools and processes in place to ensure the commitments that you're making and that quality of service? And I mean, I think that extends not just into your candidate pool, but also from a client base. Clients have a lot of choices of who to pick. Why wouldn't you want to pick somebody that you know is going to represent, especially in the direct hire realm, when you're out there marketing on behalf of those companies? They want to know that the person on the other end is going to present them well, because the candidate doesn't care if it's Collinwood. They're thinking this is whatever your end client is. And so you're an extension of their brand, and you're ensuring the quality for both sides of the equation.
Agreed.
That's awesome.
Yep.
We are up on final time. This has been great. I actually learned something which was very profound. So thank you for sharing that, because I think what you I think that's where some clients are. They're like, we can measure the referral activity. In some areas you get really good ones, and other ones it's not as much. IT's weird. I can get referrals in IT, but if a developer refers a project manager and I don't have any project management jobs, I can't help them. But if you're validating that the influence of the callbacks, the influence of the connection is where the ROI is, I love to hear that. But any final thoughts from you, Noel, that you'd like to share, what you've kind of learned since implementing this 2 years ago?
We're a big proponent. I'm always keeping my eye out for new tools, new ways to help my team, new ways to help the industry. And honestly, when you and I met and you talked about the platform you were building, because you were kind of early on at that point, but I was like, why hasn't anybody thought of this? I don't understand why is this a thing that no one's done? I even was, not that I would do it because I'm not that guy, but I'm like, why didn't I do this? That sounds so,
I'll tell you why. Because people are saying, well, what's the ROI?
Yeah.
They couldn't see the dots. And I think what it is, we're a vehicle. We're not the heroes out there. You guys are the heroes. We've just created a vehicle to capture the feedback that we knew existed for a lot of great recruiters, and the feedback for those who aren't doing well. But my hope through the platform is that this is helping people level up. This is helping people get better at what they do. People don't want negative reviews. They want to make sure they're providing a good experience. And if you don't care, this isn't an industry that you're going to have long-term success in.
For sure. And I would challenge those clients who are wondering what the ROA or I is, to like, then why does your company have an Instagram page? Why do you have a LinkedIn account? Not the resume, recruiter side, but like, why are you posting? Because I can't tangibly tell you that any Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn post I've ever posted for myself or for the company actually made us money. But I think those are table stakes to doing our business and getting your brand out there and validating that we exist and we're a real company and so on. So I would say, why do you have social media? You can't really tag that to money usually either.
Right. And getting reviews in your company, as you said, candidates aren't going to remember your company name. They're certainly going to remember your recruiter's name.
For sure.
And recruiters are your biggest brand marketers out there. And in this time where things are, competition is as high as I've ever seen, you have to give your people the tools that they need to cut through a lot of noise. And I'm just really happy to have you guys on board. I'm so happy that it's working out well for you. And this has just been a great conversation and eye-opening in a couple areas, which is awesome for me. But there's a million ways that you can get feedback. If you want to learn more about Great Recruiters, you can visit our website. You can reach out to Noel. He'll tell you how he's using it. And hey, Noel, if people want to reach out to you, there are folks in the Chicago business, IT professionals. I've got a wide network that may be seeing this, listening. How can they find you?
Yeah, I think the easiest place is just go out to LinkedIn and look for me, Noel Wolf, NOELWOLF, under Collinwood Technology Partners. If you want to email me, it's my name, noel.wolf@collinwood.co, no M at the end.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for your time. This has been great. And LinkedIn, if you're a candidate out there, you don't have to settle with working with just any recruiter. You can find yourself a great recruiter and know that they're going to treat you well and be genuine, responsive, experienced, to be an advisor, be transparent. And those folks are led by individuals like Noel who care about their businesses and the quality of experience that's out there. So thanks so much for listening in. And until next time, have a great day.
Thanks, Adam.